Hello everyone, Mr. Price here continuing our read aloud. We have been reading The Watsons Go to Birmingham, 1963 by Christopher Paul Curtis, and we had just finally made it to the point where the family was on their way to Birmingham. We made it to the chapter entitled The Watsons Go to Birmingham, 1963. Or, I guess rather, we got to the point where they were ready to head to Birmingham. They're not on their way yet. Got a little ahead of myself there. That Sunday I got up early. There weren't any cartoons on then, but it was always fun to wake up and not to have to worry about going to school. When I got into the living room, I was surprised to see the front door open. I looked outside and saw Dad sitting in the brown bomber. I guess he was listening to records because he had his arm across the seat and was beating his hand up and down like it was a drum. I ran back upstairs to the bedroom and changed out of my pajamas. I peeked out of the bedroom window to make sure Dad hadn't left. He was still in the car, so I ran downstairs and through the front door. I remembered and caught the screen door before it slammed. I tapped on the window and Dad turned and smiled at me, then pointed to the passenger side for me to get in. I ran around the car and climbed in. "Hey, Kenny." "Hi, Dad." "How'd you sleep?" "Okay, I guess. Go on in and get yakety yak and sit with me for a while." "That's okay. I'll just listen to what you're playing." We listened to a couple of jive songs, and then I said, "Dad, does Byron really have to go to Alabama? Couldn't we just drive down to about Ohio and pretend we're going to leave him and scare him?" Dad looked at me and smiled kind of slow. He reached over and turned the Ultra Glide down a little bit. "Kenneth, I know you're going to miss Byron. We all will. But son, there are some things that Byron has to learn, and he's not learning them in Flint. The things he is learning are things we don't want him to. Understand?" "No." Dad turned the Ultra Glide down a little more. He looked like he was thinking whether or not he should tell me something. He was looking straight at me, and even though it was real hard, I looked right back at him. I tried to look real intelligent, and I guess it worked, because finally Dad said, "Kenny, we put a lot of thought into this. I know you've seen on the news what's happening in some parts of the South, right?" We'd seen the pictures of a bunch of really mad white people with twisted up faces screaming and giving dirty finger signs to some little black kids who were trying to go to school. I'd seen the pictures, but I didn't really know how these white people could hate some kids so much. "I've seen it." I didn't have to tell Dad I didn't understand. "Well, a lot of times that's going to be the way of the world for you kids. Byron is getting old enough to have to understand that his time for playing is running out fast. He's got to realize that the world doesn't have a lot of jokes waiting for him. He's got to be ready." Dad looked at me again to make sure I was understanding. I nodded. "Grandma Sands says it's quiet down where they are, but we think it's time Byron got an idea of the kind of place the world can be, and maybe spending some time down south will help him open his eyes." I nodded my head again. "Mom and I are very worried because there's so many things that can go wrong to a young person, and Byron seems bound and determined to find every one of them. Now, do you really understand why we're sending Byron to Birmingham?" "I think so, Dad." "Good, because, Kenny, we've done all we can, and it seems the temptations are just too much for By here in Flint. So hopefully, the slower pace in Alabama will help him by removing some of those temptations. Hopefully, he can see that there comes a time to let all the silliness go. I'll be back, maybe at the end of the summer, maybe next year. It's completely in his own hands now." I loved when Dad talked to me like I was a grown-up. I didn't really understand half the junk he was saying, but it sure did feel good to be talked to like that. It's times like this when someone is talking to you like you're a grown-up, you have to be careful not to pick your nose or dig your drawers out of your butt. Okay, okay, Dad, thanks. He smiled again, um, turned the Ultra Glide back up and ran his hand over my head. Some of the time when you think about being a grown-up, it gets to be kind of scary. I couldn't figure out how Mama and Dad knew how to take care of things. I couldn't figure out how they knew what to do with Byron. Dad, hmm, I don't think I'll ever know what to do when I'm a grown-up. It seems like you and Mama know a lot of things that I can never learn. It seems real scary. I don't think I could be as good a parent as you guys. Dad turned the Ultraglide back down. Kenny, do you remember when we used to go on drives and I'd put you in my lap and let you steer the car? I smiled. Yeah? Does that mean I get to do it on the way to Alabama? Sure, but that's not what I meant. Do you remember how big and scary the car seemed to be the first time you were behind the wheel? Dad was right. Even though I knew he was watching everything real close, it was still scary to steer the brown bomber. Well, that's what being a grown-up is like. At first it's scary, but then before you realize, with a lot of practice, you have it under control. Hopefully you'll have lots of time to practice being a grown-up before you actually have to do it. This was making sense to me. And as far as you being a good parent, don't worry. You'll learn from the mistakes your mother and I make, just like we learned from the mistakes our parents made. I don't have a single doubt that you and Byron and Joey will be much better parents than your mother and I ever were. Dad stopped talking for a second. Besides, some of the time, we don't think we've done such a good job, but you're right, Kenneth. It can be scary. And it gets a lot scarier when you see you're responsible for three little lives. A lot scarier. I waited to see if Dad was going to talk to me like this anymore, but he turned the music back up. We listened to his junk a little more, and then I said, Dad, yeah? I've got one more question. Turned the Ultraglide back down again and gave me a serious look. What do you want to know, Kenny? Is it too late to go get Yakety Yak? Dad laughed and sent me in to get it. I had to promise to only play it 3 times, though. After the third time, I asked, Dad, why did you buy buy this record player? Don't they have radio stations in Alabama? Sure they do. Lots of them. But you see, once you get south of Cincinnati, the only kind of radio station you can get is hillbilly music. And you won't believe this, but if you listen to any kind of music long enough, first you get accustomed to it, and then you'll learn to like it. Now, your mother and I made a deal when we first got married that if either one of us ever watched the wonderful, wonderful Lawrence Welk show or listened to country music, the other one got to get a free divorce. I'm kind of used to your mother, and I don't want her to have to dump me, so instead of taking the chance that I would get hooked on hillbilly music, I thought it'd be wise to bring our own sounds along with us. Even though this made sense to me, Mama didn't buy it. For the next week, while we were getting everything set for going to Alabama, she kept reminding Dad how much the Ultraglide cost and how it messed up all the plans she'd written in her notebook. And that's where we're going to go ahead and leave the story for the day, with Kenny and his dad talking in the car. We'll pick up with the middle of Chapter 9 tomorrow. Hope you guys have a great day. Remember to complete your exit ticket, and I will talk to you soon. Bye. Take care.